Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into the epic story of a true technological masterpiece. We're talking about a triumph of engineering that didn't just break the sound barrier, it completely shattered our idea of what was possible in the sky.
And this wasn't some sci-fi fantasy. This was the reality of Concorde. Just look at it, a silver needle literally stitching continents together in record time. It was more than a plane. It was a statement. A symbol of pure, unadulterated innovation.
Get this, Mach 2.04. That's over 1,350 miles per hour. Let that sink in. It's the fastest any commercial passenger has ever flown. At that kind of speed, you weren't just flying, you were actually outrunning the sun.
And that speed, it created this totally bizarre reality. I mean, you could take off from London after breakfast and, thanks to the time zones, land in New York before you even technically left. It was like a form of time travel. It really bent the rules.
Okay, so how on earth did this incredible machine even come to be? Well, Concorde's story really kicks off back in the 1960s, a time of just intense technological rivalry. We all know about the race to the moon, right? Well, there was another race happening, a race for total dominance in the skies.
And this is where it gets interesting. Britain and France, two countries that had been rivals for centuries, actually joined forces. It was this unprecedented partnership, and their mission was to create something completely revolutionary. They were staring down challenges that absolutely no one had ever solved for a commercial plane before.
You know, this was never just about going fast. This was about overcoming absolutely monumental engineering hurdles at every single turn. It was like they were slaying the dragons of physics that guarded the whole supersonic realm.
So the first big challenge? Aerodynamics. See, at these insane speeds, the air doesn't just flow over the wings. It compresses into these incredibly powerful shock waves. Maintaining stability becomes everything, because a conventional airplane design, it would have just been torn apart.
The solution was, well, you're looking at it. This iconic delta wing. It was an absolute masterpiece of design. So elegant, but also brutally effective. It was clever enough to generate immense lift for takeoff, but also strong enough to stay incredibly stable while those shockwaves were just battering it at Mach 2.
But okay, that long, shark body created a whole new problem. The pilots couldn't see the runway. So what did the engineers do? They designed the now famous movable droop nose. When it was raised up, it was a perfectly sleek aerodynamic cone. But when it drooped down, boom, the pilots had a crystal clear view for takeoff and landing.
But hey, aerodynamics was only one piece of this giant puzzle. The next major challenge was heat, searing heat. At Mach 2, the friction from the air is so intense that the plane's skin would get unbelievably hot. We're talking over 127 degrees Celsius right at the nose.
Now, here's where the engineering gets really clever. Instead of trying to fight the heat, they just embraced it. They designed the plane to actually expand during the flight, growing up to 9 inches longer. The flight engineer could literally see a gap appear in the cabin wall mid-flight. It was an aircraft that was, in a very real way, alive with energy.
And how did they keep it perfectly balanced? I mean, the laws of aerodynamics completely change at supersonic speeds. Well, they performed this incredible ballet of fuel pumps deep inside the wings. Fuel was constantly being shifted between different tanks to move the aircraft's center of gravity. It was such a clever and absolutely crucial bit of in-flight engineering. So, when you put all of this incredible engineering together, what do you get? You get an experience unlike anything else on Earth. See, flying on Concorde, that was way more than just a flight. Passengers were flying at an altitude so high, we're talking twice as high as a normal airliner, that the sky above wasn't even blue anymore. It was this deep, dark violet, the color of near space.
And just look at this. This is the view from the cabin. Through those small windows, you weren't just crossing an ocean. No, you were witnessing our planet from the very edge of space. That was a privilege that, back then, was pretty much reserved for astronauts and for Concorde passengers.
I mean, it was a total technical triumph, a true miracle of engineering. But, despite all its incredible achievements, the dream just couldn't last forever. Concorde was eventually grounded by the harsh, everyday realities of the world down below.
So, what happened? Well, it was a few things. That massive sonic boom it created meant it could only fly at top speed over the ocean.
Its fuel consumption was just enormous, and with only 100 seats, the profit margins were razor thin. Then you had the tragic crash in 2000, which shook public confidence, and the huge drop in air travel after 9/11. It was a perfect storm that, sadly, Concorde just couldn't weather.
So, Concorde flew its last commercial flight back in 2003. But its story? It didn't end there. Not at all. Its legacy continues to inspire the future of aviation, even today.
This really shows you just how far ahead of its time this plane was. Think about it. Even today, decades after it retired, absolutely nothing in commercial aviation comes close. We are literally flying slower now than we did back in the 1970s.
It really remains the ultimate symbol of what we can achieve when we go after a bold, ambitious dream. It proved that the impossible was, in fact, possible. And it set a benchmark that engineers are still chasing with new projects, like NASA's quiet Supersonic X-59.
And all this leaves us with a final thought. Concorde was a statement. It was a machine built not just for profit, but simply to prove that it could be done. It showed us what was possible. And now, we're left to wonder when, or maybe even if, we'll ever dare to dream that big again.